Obama had 13 months to go in his presidency. And, Mark Twain says history doesn't repeat itself. He's absolutely right. No event has happened twice. But the Bible, Old Testament, says there's nothing new under the sun, meaning human nature doesn't change. So Mark Twain is supposed to have said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. So I've never worked on a film in which it wasn't rhyming in the present moment. And so The Revolution is just another one of these extraordinary stories, our origin story, which we've lost touch with.
I think there's no doubt about it.
It's at arm's length because there are no photographs, there's no newsreels. They're in buckled shoes, they got hose, they got breeches, they got waistcoats, they got powdered wigs, and somehow we don't want to fuss with the great ideas. And the great ideas are the greatest ideas ever. I actually think the American Revolution is the most important event since the birth of Christ.
I heard you say that.
I really, really firmly believe that, because if you think about it, up until that moment, everybody was under an authoritarian rule. They were subjects. They were superstitious peasants. And we created citizens. And that's a big deal. When we say we hold these truths to be self-evident, there was nothing self-evident about what Jefferson was about to say, that all men are created equal. No one on earth had made that proposition,
Really?
that they're endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Let's go.
That is not stuff that the world had ever really heard. He had distilled a century of Enlightenment thinking. He'd been goaded on by what was happening in the breakdown of relationships with the British over stuff, and what became a quarrel between Englishmen suddenly got broken out into natural rights. Like, this is what we all not only deserve, but the world needs to change. And it did from that moment on.
And that was Jefferson?
And that's Jefferson distilling it, but it's the sensibility of everybody. The other thing is that it's a process thing. It's like democracy isn't something that it's a thing, it's a process, it's something you do. So when it says pursuit of happiness, the key is, we can get to happiness in a second, but the key is pursuit. It's like, after a more perfect union, as the Constitution says. The pursuit means it's a process. You're never getting there. And happiness did not mean the acquisition of things in a marketplace of objects, but lifelong learning, so that you would be virtuous enough, they borrowed from the classical traditions, to earn the right of citizenship. And everybody talked, you hear it as we're working on that virtue, virtue, virtue. It's all about character. It's all about the idea that character is destiny. John Adams is petrified that there's too much ambition and avarice, too much lust for profit, that we won't be virtuous enough to sustain this republic. It's so interesting because they're all the ideas that we wrestle with today,
So the Declaration is kind of like a love letter to the future in a way.
Oh God, my God, that's the best expression I've ever heard. That's exactly what it is.
Interesting.
Thomas Paine, an Englishman who came off the boat in Philadelphia, failure in everything, and he contracted dysentery or typhus on the way, and he writes this pamphlet that's published in early January of 1776. At that point, the war has already started at Lexington and Concord the previous April, but nobody's really sure what we're going to do with this rebellion. And certainly independency, as they called it, is not on the mind of everybody. But he writes this thing called Common Sense. It's this pamphlet, the most important pamphlet in American history, and just comes out and says the king is an ass.
Who's this, Thomas Paine?
Yeah, Thomas Paine, And he then says, not since the time of Noah, what happened with Noah, do we have a chance to remake the world. And that's the American Revolution. It's suddenly, you're no longer quarreling over Native American land or taxes or representation. You're actually into the biggest idea that human beings have suggested, that we could actually govern ourselves. No, that had never happened before. Wow. And that we could sustain and we then these ideas sponsor revolutions for the next 200 plus years. And, we've been going along for 249 years, pretty well, thank you.
And we're in it. Thank you very much. That's a great answer.
I love the love letter to the future, though, man. I'm not going to forget that. That's a great gift you gave me today. Thank you.
Oh, man.
That's what it is, because it's all about
you said it's the pursuit of happiness, right?
That's
it's like,
right.
Sometimes even now you're challenging the way that I've thought about some of this, because it's like, and the documentary does this, and I think it's 8 parts. I'm not sure.
Six parts, 12 hours.
I haven't watched all of it, but but it challenges you to think about that. It's like, you're not just here to just be here, right? No. You're not just here like you got this Willy Wonka ticket, like to be in a citizen or a part of a society. It's something that is alive.